Hey, it's Valkyrian here. How is everyone? I've been in love with Soul games for a while now and have been playing through all of them for the better part of a year now. I've been toying with the idea of doing a challenge run for a while, being inspired by some of my favorite Souls challenge runners, and I've also never done a sorcery run on any of these games before and thought to myself, is it possible to finish one of the Dark Souls games using the starting sorcery spell only? And the challenge run idea was born. Going into this run, I had no idea what to expect, but let me just say this run was a wild ride. From doing excellent damage to some bosses, to other bosses taking me longer than any boss has in any Souls-like thus far. So let's get into the rules. The rules for this run are simple. I can only do damage to bosses and enemies using Soul Arrow. The Sorcerer class does start with Soul Arrow and Heavy Soul Arrow, but for the purposes of this run I will only be using Soul Arrow. Secondly, I must fight all bosses, and finally I am not allowed to summon NPCs for any assistance in any boss fight. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. I started off with making a magnificent specimen of a sorcerer. Yes, he is blue because sorceries are blue, and give him the wonderfully creative name of Ash Soulcroft, and chose Sorcerer as my starting class and chose the Sovereignless Soul as my burial gift. To start off, we unequipped all starting gear except for the Sorcerer staff. I make my way through the Cemetery of Ash, collecting all the goodies around the map like the Ashen Estus Flask and the Titanite Shard. I test out the damage on the hollows and I am delighted to see I can still one-shot them. I ignore the first rule of wound care and remove a sword from this random guy that's been impaled. He did not seem to like that I did that and immediately proceeded to start attacking me. Doing 73 damage to Gundyr is not bad. No, ignore that, I did not die to Iodex Gundyr. Ignore that bloodstain. After taking off half of Gundyr's health, he grows a new arm and tries to attack me with it. I kill him soon after and put an end to this frustrating encounter. I arrive in Firelink Shrine, pop the soul on me and level my intelligence to 23 and make the tree skip on my first try. I pick up the Estus Shard and the covetous Silver Serpent Ring because I will be needing a lot of souls quickly to get my damage up. And off to the high wall of Lothric we go. I immediately get reminded why I hate dogs in Souls games, and with magic they are somehow worse and dodging constantly. I see my damage is already starting to fall off and then get flattened by an axe. Ouch. I run underneath the Drake to open the door and activate the next bonfire. I pick up a Titanite Shard, the Estus Flask and the Cell Key and make an heroic escape. I free Greirat for absolutely no reason because I never spoke to him again or bought anything from him. Vord, the thickest boy of the Boreas Valley, lies ahead of us. Vord is somehow easier than Iodex Gundyr. He falls on the first try, although the fight looks like I tried to tank every hit I possibly could. I bet that won't set the tone for the rest of the run. After leveling up my intelligence to 28, I realized I forgot the flag and made my way to Emma, getting my sweet revenge on these Lothric knights as I made my way to her. Don't worry, Emma, you can live, for now. After making death threats to the locals, I made it just in time to catch my demonic lift to Undead Settlement. I make my way to Yol for the 3 levels and get the Estus Shard in the middle of a cult meeting. Holy Knight Hodrick invites me and I show him the unholy staggering potential of my Soul Arrow. I run around Undead Settlement looking for upgrade material. I should probably learn where the items are when I try to do a challenge run. And then I get my absolute shit wrecked by these thralls on a rooftop 4 separate times because some wiki said there's a Titanite Shard here when there is not. I roll down to where there is a Titanite Shard and immediately die. I suck at this game and I probably shouldn't try speedrunning tricks. I finally find another Titanite Shard from the Cackling Witch, and luckily she also drops another Titanite Shard for me. How nice of her. I get another Titanite Shard from the side of the building and upgrade my staff to +2. I then cross the drug dealer's bridge where a bunch of people try to sell me pot And when I said no, they threw it at me and proceeded to stick their dogs on me and chase me. Rude. A quick word out at the door and they decided to leave me alone. I meet with Sigurd, who tells me he doesn't know how an elevator works. Weird flex, but okay. I show Sigurd how to use the elevator to go up and make peace with Not Goth, and Sigurd decided to push me off the elevator for showing him up. I did not jump off the wrong way when trying to get to Sigurd. No. I go and collect Mortician's ashes and the Sublime Bone Dust to be able to buy the Grave Key so I can avoid the drug dealers. Strange world we live in where I need to use rat-infested sewers to avoid drug dealers. I collect another 2 Titanite shards here and one of the drug dealers jumps down to try and get revenge on me from running away from him. I make it back to Sigurd and he tells me that there's a demon lurking around. Being the absolute Chad that I am, I rush in immediately, get scolded by Sigurd, and then he pushes me off the ledge. This is the second time he has killed me. It's not that I have absolutely no spatial awareness. No, it's Sigurd, he killed me. I get my revenge and kill the demon. How am I doing more damage using magic against a demon than Sigurd with an actual weapon? I collect the Chloranthi ring to help with stamina regeneration. I make my way back to Firelink and finally level up some health. I go back to the High Wall of Lothric because I forgot a Titanite shard. I should probably plan these runs out beforehand to avoid running around in circles the entire time. Sounds like a future me's problem. Right now I upgrade my staff to +3. I make my way to the Road of Sacrifices and collect the Estus shard and get shredded for my efforts. I also collect the Sage's ring for quicker casting speed. I then heroically fight off these 2 NPCs and grab the bonfire before Farron Keep. I did know going into this run that the Crystal Sage was going to be a problem, but thought I might as well try and see how much I can do against the Crystal Sage, and yeah, 76 damage is not a lot, but to be fair, I did make it far on my first attempt and I probably could have tried a few more times and killed the Crystal Sage. But given the fact that I do not like this fight, I decided to go to Farron Keep for now and collect more upgrade materials first. I make my way to the obligatory poison swamp section of all Souls-likes, in this instance Farron Keep. I immediately go and grab the Crown of Dusk to help with damage and extinguish the free flames to open the door. Before I did that though, I grabbed the Dreamchaser's ashes and got my world rocked by a stray demon and collected the 2 large Titanite shards from the crystal lizards on top of the bridge. I upgraded my staff to +4 before facing the Abyss Watchers. I was worried they might be a real roadblock for me since I have only ever fought them melee and even then they were quite a challenge, but to my surprise I actually second tried them. The first try against them was a bit rough, but on my second attempt I delivered them an abysmal defeat that I had no choice but to watch happen. I sped through the Catacombs of Corvus. Since there's not really anything I need in the Catacombs, I grabbed the Undead Bone Shard from the Skeleton Carousel wheel and ran for my life until I entered the room with an alarming amount of candles. Who was lighting these candles? Are the skeletons doing this? I look at the strange skull cup, which has most definitely been used for human sacrifice, and get sucked into a strange dark place. Have I just been roofied? Well, this is where I get my organ stolen. High Lord Wolnir was easier than I thought he would be. The real difficult part of fighting this big-ass skeleton was free aiming for the bracelets. However, soon Wolnir fell back into his black hole before he could get to my hole. A smouldering lake is as fun as ever. Can you hear it? Can you hear the sarcasm? I run around collecting all the large Titanite shards I can find while getting absolutely drilled by the ballista. I killed the crystal lizard in the cave for a Titanite chunk and collected 2 more large Titanite shards. Just for fun, I decided to use the ballista to kill the lost extra of a Dune movie for another Hunter's Bone. I then make my way to the completed version of Lost Izalith for 3 Titanite shards and an Estus shard. I upgrade my weapon to +6 before facing the old Demon King. As usual, he is quite easy, he is slow and has massive openings and has no counter for ranged attacks at all. He falls in less than 2 minutes. Guess you could say he belongs in the old age home. As I would like to have more damage before taking on Pontiff Sullivan, I decided to do Dancer early since all the Titanite chunks are locked behind her. Dancer went as well as can be expected. She absolutely bodied me on my first attempt. I didn't really have any strategies going into the Dancer fight. I only tried to stay as far away from her as possible. Most bosses in the game doesn't really have anything they can do against ranged attacks. If only there was a super aggressive boss that could close the gap in a second and absolutely wreck my shit. Dancer falls on the second try and I am really flabbergasted with how effective Soul Arrow is turning out to be. I really expected to struggle more, but while the damage is not amazing, only doing around 157 damage per cast against Dancer, I can cast it quickly and the FP cost is quite low. I upgraded my stats a bit again, my stats currently looking like this. I make my way to the Consumed King's Garden and collect the Estus Shard and all Titanite chunks in the area and open the shortcut door while I'm there. There are 4 Titanite chunks in the Consumed King's Garden, and with the one I got in Smoldering Lake, I just needed one more chunk to get my staff to +8. So I tried at the Firebomb with Pickle P, or should I say I tried to get to Pickle P for an embarrassingly long amount of time using the Treescape. With my weapon upgraded to +8, I was finally ready to go to Irophil. I killed Pontiff's Croc Dog very easily. I love how effective Soul Arrow is, and came to a startling realization that most of you has probably already been screaming at me. I need the doll. So I made my way back to the Crystal Ginger, and with all my upgrades and levels, it all amounted to 50 points of damage more against the Crystal Sage. It took a few tries, but eventually the Sage could see crystal clear that I am the better sorcerer. The only real trick to this is staying behind the pillars to avoid the soul crystal mass and just keeping an eye out for the white dragon's breath, and then in the second phase killing the clones as quickly as possible. At this point I also remembered I have not yet killed the Cursed Rotten Greatwood. What is there to say about this fight? I hit his sacks until he exploded. Anyways. And now for the first roadblock of the run. Deacons of the Deep. I did anticipate and have seen from other challenge runners that Deacons are horrible with ranged options. But I was not prepared for the unbelievable amount of rage this fight would instill in me. No matter what I did, I just couldn't deal enough damage to them before I would get cursed in the second phase. Getting my curse resistance up was not possible as the curse point ring is in the profaned capital and the jailer set with the highest curse resistance is in Irophil dungeon or locked away behind these fire spamming bitches. So here's what to expect from this fight. Fireball spam, your lock-on going absolutely insane, having to shoot 4 soul arrows at one deacon before he dies, and then right when you're about to kill him, the soul or whatever it is teleporting to another deacon and you have to start all over again. The best way I found to deal with this fight is luring the initial horde to the furthest back area of the boss room, killing the deacons one for one until the main deacon spawns in front. I would then run to the front where the archdeacon spawn and throw alluring skulls to distract his vanguard before they start casting the curse or the healing spell. I can then safely attack the archdeacon while staying at medium range to avoid him attacking me, which somehow also interrupts me. This fight is horrible using range. 0 out of 10 would not recommend. With finally having the doll in my possession, I made my way towards Irophil of the Boreal Valley. I will never get tired of how beautiful this place actually is. There is not a lot I need in Irophil. I collected all the Titanite shards I can find since I will be needing them soon, and I made my way to the Church of Yorshka and collected the Firekeeper soul and made my way to the distant manor bonfire. I then leveled my intelligence to 50 and got reminded again, twice, why I absolutely hate fighting souls dogs with anything other than melee. I opened both shortcuts and it was finally time for Pontiff Sullivan. Truth be told, I struggle with this boss every time I play this game. There is something about his moveset that just catches me off guard. Him being resistant to magic did not make this fight easier. I cannot say that I really learned much about this fight. The winning attempt was not my best. I took a lot of hits early on. And when he summoned his clone for the second time, I had no heals left and had to use an ember to heal, and he still had about 40% of his health remaining. And somehow I locked in to get the win. I'm going to show the last 30 seconds of this fight to show exactly how close this victory was. After 5 attempts, Pont of Sullivan goes down. I continued on and dragged the Drang twins, and for some reason decided to take on both of Sullivan's beasts. Did I die 3 times to them? Yes I did. Could I have skipped both of them? Yeah, I probably should have. Did I kill both of them? Absolutely. Was it worth it? No. The Ring of Favor sucks in DS3. I ran and somehow survived all the archers on my way to Anor Londo. Aldrich is not my favorite fight in the game, mostly because of his annoying arrow rain. This fight took a bit to figure out. Aldrich having a 65% damage negation to magic made this a long and drawn out fight as well. My first attempt against him went about as well as one can expect, doing 80 damage per cast against him and taking 30% more damage against magic due to the Crown of Dusk made this much worse. I ended up taking off the Crown of Dusk to help with that. At the end of the day, I found it best to deal with Aldrich up close, since his close range moveset is much easier to avoid than his constant spam of Crystal Soul Spear. His first phase is easy to dodge all his attacks and stay close to him, and I have a lot of damage windows, which I need since I'm only doing 73 damage per cast, the lowest it's been so far. His second phase was much more of the same. The only real difference is his arrow rain now lasting much longer, but luckily if you stand here, the arrow rain cannot reach you. And then he has his Life Hunt Scythe Swipe, which can heal him, but I am still not sure how to consistently avoid this attack. It took about an hour's worth of attempts before I finally shot Aldrich to the deep end and devoured any hopes he had of continuing to puppeteer Gwendolyn. The winning attempt took about 6.5 minutes. I'm going to be honest, I don't like Iroquois Dungeon. The whole area just gives me the creeps. So I just ran to get the jailer's key so I can get the Bellowing Dragon Crest ring and ran for my life until I reached the profaned capital. I went to the second poisoned area of this game, the one with the weird hand creatures. I stayed as far away from them as possible since I was in no mood for a hand job. I climbed up the ladder and killed the sorcerer on the roof and then jumped down so I can get my prize, the Court Sorcerer's Staff. I used an Undead Hunter's Charm on the Mimic chest and took my prize and made my most daring escape yet without having angered a single handy. I made my way back to Firelink Shrine and upgraded the Court Sorcerer's Staff to +6, and at this point it was already doing more damage than the previous one. I overestimated how much Ashen Estus I would need for Yhorm. Yeah, no, Yhorm was very easy with magic. I was worried that Yhorm would be another 7-8 minute fight. I have fought Yhorm before without using the Storm Ruler. I fought them previously with daggers only and the fight took about 16 minutes. However, 4 soul arrows to the head and he would stagger, and then I can do a whopping 1300 damage per cast of soul arrow. So, safe to say, Yhorm went down on the first attempt in less than 3 minutes. I bet he didn't see such a gigantic loss in his future. Since I already opened the shortcut, I immediately moved on to Osiris. He was not the worst boss to fight, to be honest. Him being 50% resistant to magic damage did make the fight last longer than necessary. His first phase was a joke. He would just stand there and take damage and occasionally do a tail swipe or attack with his staff. But other than that, he didn't really have any counter for range in his first phase. The problem comes in his second phase, And oh boy, what a second phase it was. Fuck Osiris and his no wind-up charge. It took about 8 tries and requires just a bit of patience. Dodging into his charge attack allows for a punish window where I could get 1 or 2 casts off and then had to roll back to avoid his tail swipe. And dodging to the right of his Ice Breath attack generally seems to work with avoiding his attack. In the end, the scaleless imposter consumed too much dragon juice and perished. I collected the Path of the Dragon emote for later and made my way to the untended graves. I grabbed the Ashen Estes ring for in case, and a lady wanted to show me her crystal collection, but I was in no mood and rather shouted my arrow, which caused her to get spirited away for some reason. Damn, too bad. Champion Gandir is probably my favorite boss in this game. He is hyper aggressive and I like that he's an unexpected challenge. However, I'm not very good at fighting Champion Gandir, and he kicked my ass a few times. To be honest, I don't even know how I ended up defeating him. I just know my damage was great and I was able to DPS him down as quickly as possible. After 8 attempts, Gandir had to concede that I was in fact the champion. I returned to Ireful Dungeon and stripped down before getting drugged for the second time in one playthrough and woke up in Archdragon Peak. You know what is not Peak? Fighting the Ancient Wyvern with spells only. Only doing 154 damage per cast against his massive health pool meant by the time I finally managed to kill the Wyvern, I was ancient as well. Moving on to the Nameless King, for some reason he was a bit of a difficult one. Fighting the King's Chicken is as usual an exercise in fighting the camera more than the fire-breathing chicken. Nameless himself does like to lore walk towards you slowly, but he has a bit of a habit of input reading spell casts, so the moment you try to cast a spell he will jump up and do a thrust attack, and his grab has some insane tracking. But the Nameless King gets turned into the Dead King in 13 attempts. I run around Archdragon Peak collecting all the remaining Titanite chunks I need, and with the Titanite slab you get after defeating Nameless, I upgraded my staff to maximum. At this point I realized I forgot the magic clutch ring in Ireful and went back to go and collect it. And now it's time for the final 3 bosses of the base game. I didn't need much from Lothric Castle as my staff is already fully leveled and I have all the damage increasing items I could need, so I just collected the Undead Bone Shard in the area and ignored the rest to reach Dragonslayer armor. I wish I had something to say about this fight, but it was over so quickly. I mean, look at this, I staggered him and took away nearly 40% of his health right there. I screamed when I saw the moonbeam from the butterfly, but other than that this fight was over in less than 2 minutes and the Dragonslayer armor should just go back to Dark Souls 1. I then made my merry way to the Grand Archives. Another Crystal Sage tried to attack me, but I ran away before she could pepper me with her spells. I could have gotten the Scholar's Candlestick at this point, but I have been using the St. Dries Belvine Chime in my offhand to boost my casting speed, and I didn't see the need for the 10% more damage as compared to having a faster casting speed. And so we have reached the final Lord of Cinder, Lothric. Lothric was not the best pleased to see me, and he sent his disabled brother to crawl towards me, which might be more terrifying than having him run towards me, to be honest. Elorian takes a lot of damage from my soul arrow and likes to lore crawl after me, so taking him down was easy. Taking down Lothric after he decides to pull a Mikala, or did Mikala pull a Lothric? If I had a nickel for every time a brother climbed on the other one's back and started spamming spells at me, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's strange that it happened twice. Phase 2 was a bit trickier, since Lothric has a 47% damage negation to magic, meaning I had to kill Lorian 4 times before I could bring Lothric down as well. In the end, it took 10 attempts to fell the brothers and secure the final cinders of a lord. Alright, last boss of the base game. Soul of Cinder is an interesting boss fight for me. He is my favorite final boss in all of the Dark Souls games, but he is surprisingly easy and he didn't switch to his magic phase in the first phase at all. He did however use his curved sword and decided to bend and boon on me. The Soul of Cinder goes down on my first attempt. I link the fire and bring an end to the base game. And now for the Ashes of Ariandel DLC. I didn't need anything in the DLC, so I ran to the chapel, spoke to deep-voiced Wilhelm and Sister Frida. A Crowverine jumped on my head and I have no idea what it did to me, but I think I need to find a trusted adult because I feel violated. Wilhelm was not that trusted adult and decided to take my magic abilities away from me. For some reason his AI completely broke when I lured him outside, and he seemed more interested in going back into the building than attacking me. I somehow ended up in my worst nightmare. I ran away from every single fly I could, then the switch and opened the way to Father Ariandel. This place is the absolute worst. What do you mean there are flies that tries to jump on you as well as Crowverines? Why is everything jumping on me? And now we have reached the true brick wall of this run. Sister Frida. I tried everything against her, but she just relentlessly killed me over and over and over and over again. I spent the better part of 3 hours fighting her just to die every single time. It probably took me over 40 attempts. I'm not gonna go count them all. Her first phase is not the worst. She can be staggered quite easily and I can stun her out of going invisible even. And the second phase is not the worst either, since Father Ariandel takes a lot of damage from Soul Arrow. The Black Flame Frida phase, however, I did not survive more than 15 seconds. She just did an insane amount of damage to me. If I was not embered, she could legit one-shot me with her phase-free grab. Granted, I would probably not survive that either. However, after a few hours, I did finally come out the other side victorious. It took more attempts than it should, but I killed Sister Frida with soul arrows only. The winning attempt took 6 minutes, and 3 of those minutes were spent in the Black Flame Frida phase. Anyways, here's a compilation of that entire fight. After Sister Frida, I actually first tried my way down the vines and made it to the champion's grave tender. This fight wasn't horrible, he just dodges projectiles a lot, so the best time to attack was after he did an attack or whiffed an attack, and then when the Great Wolf spawns in, I would focus on him since I could not kill the champion quick enough. I second tried this boss, so nothing too serious. Unfortunately, however, this is where the run ends. After Sister Frida, I did not have it in me to do the Duo Demon fight. I gave them a good 5 tries, but spending nearly 5 minutes every time to reach the Demon Prince phase and having to spend nearly 10 minutes fighting him every time, I just didn't have it in me. I might come back to this challenge someday, but for now, we did more than I thought possible. I honestly thought Frida would be the end of this run. But hey, being able to defeat her feels like the best possible outcome. Anyways, that's all for now. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please drop a like and a follow, and I will see you in the next one.